Hi, I'm Bernard Crouch, a volunteer with the IWFM. So, for World FM Day this year, we decided it would be a good idea to interview some FMs from around the globe. The countries involved included USA, UK, Netherlands, Nigeria, Thailand, and India. We've asked them five workplace related questions to see what they have to say. So, hi, Wojciech. How are you?
Hi, Bernard. I'm okay. Thank you. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm good. So, the five questions that I wanted to ask you. The first one is about the buildings that FMs run, and would you consider, in your experience in the USA, that you're looking after a managed asset, or is it considered more of a social environment?
Well, from my experience, Bernard, in the USA, the workplace is currently evolving from a managed asset into a hybrid system that functions as a critical social environment. We have the workplace as a managed asset where we can see, well, data-driven space utilization. We have return to office strategies being implemented. We also see productivity monitoring. And then when we look at the workplace as a social environment, it is a generator of social capital, the social organism model, so to speak, where it's a place for collaboration and mentoring rather than just rows of desks. And it's a place where we combat loneliness. Workplaces are often the primary source of social connection outside of the family. Also, there is a trend in the US moving toward integrating two ideas. One of them is hybrid by default, and the second one is purposeful presence. The first one is hybrid work, as we know, has become the norm, with teams using in office days for collaboration and socializing, and remote days for deep work. In purposeful presence, rather than strict 5 day mandates, companies are encouraging team-based attendance for specific social and creative tasks. Actually, what I have seen is that more and more companies are encouraging a 4 weekday policy versus 5 day, and that has also that gives employees more time for them to be away from work with their families and so on. So my conclusion would be that the leadership in the United States tends to view that the office as a managed asset, while employees often treat it as a social environment where they value relationships and flexibility. And of course, the most effective workplaces in the US are those that intentionally combine both practices.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, thank you. And then in that environment, how do we make those environments more inclusive? And obviously, here we're thinking about neurodiversity, disability, and different personality types. So, an introvert who might struggle with an open plan environment, or an extrovert who might struggle with being stuck in a little office at the end of the corridor.
Okay, so creating a more inclusive environment in the US involves quite a few things outside of those that you mentioned. I will get back to them, but it's about fostering psychological safety. It's about implementing equitable hiring practices, which is quite important right now. It's a country of immigrants, and also using inclusive language. There are some key strategies for inclusion. They cover, for example, inclusive leadership, where leaders model active listening, empathy, and so on. Also, accessible and diverse hiring, that where we utilize awareness training in recruitment, effective communication, which includes inclusive language like gender neutral terms and pronouns in signatures to foster belonging are seen. We also have supportive policies like that offer flexible work options. What's important for me, let's say, it's cultural and religious sensitivity, providing floating holidays. Like in my case, I may celebrate, let's say, May the 3rd, which is a Polish Constitution Day, by getting a day off on that specific day, although it's not a holiday in the United States. What's also important is, from my perspective as a manager as well, the feedback mechanisms. So it's about regular anonymous surveys or town hall meetings with the leadership. And so developing the inclusive workplace happens through in the areas I have seen and environments I have seen in the US through training leaders, implementing actionable strategies, and then going back to your first statement, physical and digital accessibility. We have in the United States the ADA uh, uh, federal law, and the ADA stands for the Americans with Disabilities Act. It's a federal law that prohibits discrimination against individuals with disabilities in all areas of public life, which is very important because most, if not all, buildings have to comply with special with enough space in restrooms, accessibility to buildings, and so on and so forth. So um, I would say that those are the most important aspects for the inclusive environment in the US.
Okay, thanks for that. And in terms of productivity in the workplace, who would you say in the US typically might own that? Would it be HR, FM, IT? Who would productivity sit with?
Well, since this podcast will be broadcasting on the FM day, I don't have a choice but to say it's us facility managers who run the show, right? Well, the reality is a little bit more complicated in the US because ownership of productivity is changing to a shared and cross-functional responsibility. It's driven heavily by human resources in collaboration and partnership with IT and FMs. So the breakdown of the current landscape in the US of productivity ownership shows us the human resources as the strategic lead, then information technology as so-called the enabler, and then it's us, facilities management, as the environment steward. And all these combined will deliver the great product, which is the quality of what we all work together for. Now, so to answer your question, Bernard, the emerging model in the US is a shared ownership of productivity. Successful US organizations are, I have seen, abandoning the idea that one department owns productivity entirely. Instead, they are moving towards a more unified approach. Okay.
Did we freeze there for a second?
So to answer your question about who owns productivity, I would say it's the emerging model
Yeah.
of a shared ownership
Uh-huh.
where successful US companies and organizations are abandoning the idea that one department owns productivity entirely. Instead, they are moving towards a unified approach.
Okay, that's good. Interesting answer on productivity. Sensors in the workplace. So obviously we're seeing technologies giving us the opportunity to place sensors throughout the workplace for various different functions. Do you see that as being supportive, or would it be regarded as surveillance if you've put sensors into a workplace?
So Bernard, the workplace sensors that I have seen in the US are often used for both supportive and surveillance purposes. Depending on company policy, transparency, and the type of technology deployed, companies use sensors to improve the working environment, manage spaces, and prevent accidents. So there are a few areas I have seen that, for example, occupancy and space management, where we use smart sensors to detect if desks are or meeting rooms are in use to optimize energy usage. Then we have worker safety and ergonomics, where wearable sensors can track physical stress, improper postures to prevent injuries. We also have seen proximity and hazard detection, especially in construction and manufacturing. Proximity sensors warn workers when they are too close to dangerous machinery or when they enter restricted zones. And last but not least, environmental monitoring, where sensors detect toxic gases, excessive noise, or poor air quality. So many employers use sensors to track productivity, location, and presence of the workers. And the line between support and surveillance often hinges on intent and transparency. Supportive systems are designed to assist the employee, such as mentioned ergonomic sensors giving private feedback to the user. But surveillance systems, I would say, are designed and implemented to report worker activity to management for evaluation. There are some issues with that because we talk about legality, and in the US, employee monitoring is permissible, provided that employees are notified about that. But there are also some limits to it. Privacy laws prevent surveillance in private areas like locker rooms or washrooms.
Okay. And the fifth question is, does sustainability restrict or enhance the workplace?
Sustainability in the US currently is operating as both an enhancement and a restriction, depending on the sector, state, and political context. It is viewed by many businesses that I have been interacting with as an enhancement that adds on long-term value, innovation, and reputation, which is also quite important, while simultaneously acting as a regulatory restriction, particularly in 2025 and 26 with the new administration, as the federal government rolls back some climate policies, while states and international mandates introduce new compliance burdens. But when we look at sustainability as an enhancement, we see value and opportunity. And those would be like long-term strategy, operational benefits, market leadership, and consumer preference. Research actually indicates that a majority of Americans are willing to pay more for sustainable products, okay? And then when we look at sustainability as a restriction, we see costs and regulations. I mentioned about the compliance burden, shift in federal policy, and international mandates. You would know probably that US companies operating in Europe must comply with stricter EU sustainability rules. So to answer your question, again, Bernard, I would say sustainability in the US is operating as both an enhancement and as a restriction at the same time.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. A really useful set of answers there. So, Tunde, how are things in Nigeria?
Same old, same old. We're getting close to election period, so all the politicians and those who support them actively are already out there campaigning in one form or the other. So,
Yeah,
and then
we
the
have.
Middle East crisis, obviously, as it's affecting everyone is affecting us. Cost of petrol has gone up. Cost of diesel gone up. So obviously affecting our industry. Service charge, all related activities are affected. Transportation, cost of materials, cost of labor, everything gone up. And there is no particular control from government. So
difficult times. Same. We have similar problems. Anyway, great to have you on. Let's ask you these questions.
Thank you.
And if we could keep it fairly tight, because we're going to have to. I've got yourself and 5 others, so we're going to just get the key answers, key points, and key answers. So my first question is about the work environment, and is it a managed asset or is it a social environment? How is it with you?
Well, I think it's a bit of both. It's an asset and it's also a social environment. It's an asset from the standpoint that whoever put the built environment expects some returns on investment. So to that extent, it's an asset that is being managed to retain its value over time. But it's also, however, it's also a social environment, because that's where you have people the end users, for instance, who make use of that environment. They do more than they don't look at it from the perspective of whoever has created that asset. So they see it as an environment for them to carry out their daily activities in whatever form, whatever it is. So for me, it's a bit of both.
Okay, no, that's great. And in terms of and this is something that we've been looking at a lot in the UK of late. How do you go about creating inclusive environments? So considering that obviously people have different personalities, maybe have different disabilities. How do you go around creating those environments?
Again, we have to start looking at the future. These days, we're looking at everything holistically. We're looking at we want to bring everybody into, for lack of a better word, family, and not exclude anybody, regardless of status, your physical appearance, whatever, your ethnic, religion, So it's important that as we look to the future, that we begin to build this environment such that everyone is able to make use of whatever this facility or built environment in such a way that nobody is left out. Nobody feels discriminated. Nobody feels that they've given preference to one group over the other. So I think going forward, that as those who put these environments together in collaboration with facility management professionals, that we need to be looking at what will make the built environment extremely useful and productive, in the sense that everyone can make use of it without feeling left out or being discriminated against.
Okay.
So I think it's a way to consider going forward. Yeah.
And in terms of productivity, who do you think owns it? Is it owned by HR? Is it owned by FM? Maybe IT? Who do you think owns productivity in Nigeria in the workplace?
I believe in terms of productivity, it's owned by FM. FM plays a very critical role. Yes, support comes from HR, maybe in terms of recruitment, IT in terms of providing the applications and tools from a digital point to support the work of FM. But FM owns the productivity, because the FM professionals are the ones in the field. They are the ones who actually carry out the work that is required. They are the ones who see everything from whatever angle, and they should own productivity. They are the key players, the engineers, the support staff, cleaners, whatever you call them, electrical, mechanical. They are the ones that they see everything in real time. So they should own productivity.
Okay, so FM. Great. And then sensors in the workplace, is that something that you maybe do or don't have? And if you do have, would you see them as being supporting the supporting the end users, or would it be perceived as surveillance?
Well, sensor, again, we've been talking about cutting costs, managing power in such a way that we save the environment, we 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 create an environment that is smart, that over time makes life a lot easier for everyone. And I think if you introduce sensors in every way possible, why not? It helps rather than a surveillance. I don't see why anyone would see it as surveillance. Of
Okay.
course, well, in a situation you will have two compelling arguments, but I think the overriding would be that it helps. It helps us to manage situations and whatever we do much better.
Okay, great. And then in terms of sustainability, do you see that restricting or enhancing the workplace sustainability
Well,
measures?
I think it enhances the workplace. I mean, sustainability, but however you look at it, over time it will enhance, the workplace because there are very many positive benefits for sustainability. I don't see it as anything that is negative, and I believe that if we apply all that we have been talking about in a positive way, and in a way that shows purpose, then it will enhance, what we do as FM professionals.
Okay, no, that's great. Thank you, Tunde. So, Hayek, how are you?
I'm good. I'm very well, thank you. Brilliant.
Good, good. Okay, well, I've got 5 questions, so we'll move on into those. So, the first question I
Shoot.
wanted to ask is, particularly in Thailand, how are the buildings seen? Are they seen as an asset that needs to be managed or as a social environment?
Well, actually, right now in Thailand, it's more like on the asset management, to manage asset. But however, it started to move on into the social environment, more on uh, the the inclusive of the people, from the building itself, from the place itself, to be more on focus on people.
Okay, that's good to hear. And how are you doing in terms of inclusivity in the workplace?
Right. We just got a report. Actually, I do the research for the 3 year back 5 years since the COVID in Thailand. The workplace itself have changed quite dramatically, from just a place to work into more on the activity base, more into what we call back here in Thailand is about the dopamine workplace, a place where you can actually enhance your dopamine on side happiness side, on uh, creativity side, and also a lot of place where you can choose to work more productivity.
Okay, that's good. And who would you say owns productivity? Is it so when the CEO's thinking about productivity in the workplace, do they see that it's an HR issue, an FM issue, an IT issue? Where does it sit?
Well, this is quite interesting. Uh, for me personally, I don't think it's um, right on for each places. So actually, it's all together have to be responsible for the productivities. The HR, the ITs, and also the facility managers have to be um, collaborate to get these productivities out from the people.
Okay, that's good. I agree. And in terms of sensors, do you see sensors in the workplace as being supportive or regarded as surveillance?
Well, this is quite another good question because well, actually in Thailand as well, when we started to get the sensors installed into the workplace, most of the staff will think about that there is surveillance from the top level. So by doing change management, make them understand the top-down management have to communicate the right um, uh, the right language or the right context to make the people understand. So actually, for me, it's help, but you need to communicate the right thing.
Communication, that's what it's, that's what I, that's what I say. That's always a good
Yes,
thing.
yes.
And the fifth question is about sustainability. Is it perceived in Thailand as restricting or enhancing the workplace?
Um, right now it's restricting. In Thailand, we just started uh, the sustainability in COP20 just a couple years ago. So actually, we just on the first step of bringing the sustainable into the buildings and the workplace. So right now, it's kind of the restricted rather than enhancing the workplace itself.
Interesting. Okay, thanks, Sadek. A really useful conversation and answers to those five questions.
Thank you.
So, hello, Sarav. How are you?
I am good, thank you. How about you?
I'm very good, thank you. So, we'll get straight into these five questions. From your perspective, are we looking at our buildings as managed assets or as social environments?
From an Indian perspective, we are starting to look at buildings as social environment, uh, whereas we main cities like Gurugram, Noida, Hyderabad, Chennai also have very good, very good offices or locations where it is more of a social environment, very much together with the office environment. So yes, I think we are moving towards a social environment rather than a building or managed asset.
Excellent. And where would you say India is in terms of creating inclusive environments? So I'm thinking here about a whole variety, neurodiversity, um, disability, all of the different types of people with different challenges who come to the workplace. How is it? How is it with you?
Yeah. So in India, there are two aspects to it. One is the main building access for especially enable disabled people, and then the other part is inside the office, how you design the office for maintaining that standard. While I say externally, from the building access, people are accessing the building. There are ramps and lifts that are supporting disabled people to be able to come to the office. And when they come to the office, we have things like adjustable lightings, color, which is more towards supporting the neurodiversified people, and then equipped with high quality video audio setup within the offices. Also, we are seeing more and more zoning of offices like collab areas, huddles, and relaxation zones, and this gives a more flexibility for different type of staff that are coming to the offices.
Okay, that sounds good. The third question then is, who would you say owns productivity? Is it FM, HR, IT? Who does productivity sit with?
I think it's a joint responsibility. So while FM and the workplace can have offices which will be helpful in concentrating in the offices whenever they want to have more work that is needs more concentration, they can go to a zone where it is quiet zone, or whenever they are doing something which can be done in a more open environment, they can come and sit there and work. So well, FM can provide that environment. Uh, there has to be support by HR policies, which allows you to be in the office and work around or work from home as required. Similarly, for both of these, we need a robust IT system which can support you working from home, which can support you working from office seamlessly. When you are in office, when you're at home, you should be able to move it very seamlessly. So all of us should meet together and make sure that we have a office which is more productive.
Okay, good, good. And then in terms of sensors in the workplace, the introduction of sensors within, and I'm talking about the sort of office floor, if you like, rather than say the plant room. Would you see sensors as being supportive or regarded as surveillance?
When it does not look at particular individuals or able to identify particular individuals, it is supportive for all organizations, I believe. We can get the utilization data very easily if you are putting in sensors. We can get how much space is being utilized at what point of time. Is there any specific time that these are used and in another time these are not used? How can we optimize those things? These data input can come if we have a sensor, but it is very sensitive and we have to make sure that it doesn't have a person identified in these things. So I think that's my point of view.
Yeah, I totally agree. So the fifth question is then about sustainability. Would you say that's a restriction or an enhancement for the workplace?
Sustainability, it's currently a 50-50 from my perspective. Uh, when it becomes like something like plants inside the premises, which will give a good air quality and sustainable offices, people will come to offices. That is a good aspect. But we have to spend, and sometimes we have to spend a lot of money in when we call it a sustainable place to work, like a LEED certified building that will have much higher rental than a normal building. Similarly, LEEDs have different grades. LEEDs, platinum, gold, and so on. So every time you change your priorities, or if you want a higher level of sustainability, what you call requirement, then the cost also increases. Sometimes that will not be supported by organizations, and sometimes it is supported. So basically, we say we are 50-50, that okay, if the organization can support, it can be a good thing for us. If organizations are unable to support, then probably it should be a mediocre, or at a 50% level that we can do.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for that, Sura. Very good to talk to you.
Just to add to the last one, I think India has much more uh, certified buildings uh, in comparison to other parts of the world. And we have started building new buildings with a lot of uh,
Sorry, I lost you there for a second. You started building new buildings.
yeah. So the India in India there are new buildings being built with a lot of energy saving features in it,
Okay.
which is a very good positive feature that we are having in the newer buildings. So that is a good sustainable way of doing things.
So hi, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Bernard. How about yourself?
I'm very well, thanks. So thank you for coming on today. I'm going to get straight into the questions. So the
Indeed.
first one is the buildings we look after, are they managed assets or are they social environments?
So I don't think it's an either or. anymore. I think we need to find a balance. I think it's both. And I think the challenge for workplaces is finding the balance. Yes, the workspace is it's a managed asset and it costs money and it needs to perform, it has to be safe, compliant, efficient, etc. But if we only manage it as an asset, then we miss its true value. The workplace is fundamentally a social environment. It enables culture, collaboration, people to come together and be in the same space and share those ideas and get that sense of belonging. And I think the organizations that do this well, treat the workplace as a platform. It supports numerous ways of working. It's able to bring several different types of people together with a shared purpose, and also reinforces what it's like to be part of an organization rather than just somewhere where people come and sit and work.
Okay, good. And in terms of the environment from an inclusivity point of view, how are you going around creating an inclusive environment?
Well, first and foremost, it needs to be a space that's co-created by or with the employees. Uh, so often you find that workspaces, project teams, they speak to them, they speak within themselves, and they speak to the project manager, and they speak to the person that's delivering the design brief, and they very rarely include the people that are actually going to be using that space on a day-to-day basis. People experience the workplace differently. So from an inclusivity point of view, the design in terms of diversity, accessibility needs, and people in different stages of life and working styles, that needs to be apparent in the space. So there's a lot of things to consider, and you can only get that information if you are liaising with your staff. The understanding of the flexible attendance and working models, and how meetings are set up. And it can't just be like a one-off design project. It has to be something that evolves over time, because people's tastes and needs change. So you need to have a space that is able to do the same.
And a second part to that question, actually, for yourself,
Yeah.
do you have an example of where you tried to change the environment and it didn't work?
Yes, I do actually. So we recently updated our company values, and they are color coded. And so we had some discussions and for how do we reflect this within the space, and we have some beautiful pillars in our building, so we thought we'd paint the pillars or highlight the pillars in the new company value colors. Now, from a workplace point of view, we are very much aware that these colors, which are very bright, if the whole pillar was painted, it could be quite overwhelming for people, specifically from a neurodiverse point of view. Um, we were overridden on that decision, and what ended up is that we had pillars that were bright red, bright purple, green, blue, and immediately that first day, people came up to us and said, "It's so intense and so overwhelming. I can't work. I can't focus." Many of our neurodivergent members of staff said to us, it feels like being in a nursery, like in a creche, because of these really intense colors. So we went back to the contractors and we said, look, we just want to highlight it, just probably like that much distance from floor upwards. And once that was done, immediately the feedback was positive. That's so much better. I feel so much calmer, but also I can see what you've done and why you've done it. So yeah, that is what I mean about being able to be agile and thinking on your feet, and also making sure that you liaise with staff in terms of creating that space.
Great, great. So the next question is, who owns productivity? Is it HR? Is it IT? Is it FM? Who owns it?
It it
Who should own it?
it does. I personally don't feel it belongs to one particular team. I think it doesn't sit in one box, and I think that's where spaces often go wrong. To sort of siphon off, okay, that's yours, that's yours, that's yours. It. I think it belongs to everyone, and everyone needs to be able to come together and lean on their expertise bring that to the table, and then you can find a solution. I mean, from my perspective, productivity is about removing the obstacles, the frictions, and the poor environments, and the unclear expectations, and leaders create the conditions, teams then deliver the outcomes, and the workplace ecosystem either helps or hinders that process. And so you need numerous inputs from those aforementioned departments in order to get to the successful bit.
Good. I like that. And then sensors in the workplace.
Mm.
Are they supportive for the end users, or are they considered as surveillance?
So yeah, for me that depends on the intent, and how transparent you are with your staff. Are you having an open conversation with your staff and saying, look, we are doing this and this is the reason why? Or are staff just coming in on a Monday morning and seeing this beeping red light above them all of a sudden at each desk? If they use well, they can help us, particularly in workspace, just understand how the space been used, so we can then use that data to improve comfort and improve efficiency and sustainability. If a certain space is not being used as effectively as it could be, can we reutilize that space in another fashion? A space that's been, the people have been crying out for, can we reuse that? If it's used badly, I'm not a massive fan of specific desk sensors because it feels like you're monitoring whether people are, how long are you working for and where did you go between the hours of 11:30 and 2 o'clock. You might have had an off-site meeting, you might have done a walk-in meeting, you may have decided to work in one of the open space areas, but that's not taken into consideration sometimes. And what that ends up doing is eroding the trust in the workspace. So for me, I think a line is crossed when it's perceived to be monitoring people rather than the environments, and employees need to understand what is being measured, why it's being measured, and how it will end up benefiting them in the long run. So I actually think they can be really supportive, particularly for us. But you need that clarity. Without that clarity, if you lose the trust, it's incredibly hard to regain, especially in this current climate that we're in.
Totally agree. The sensor can't see there's a jacket on the back of your chair and that you're actually in a meeting down the
Precisely.
corridor.
Precisely. Exactly that. Exactly that.
And the last question is sustainability. And if you've got an example on this, it'd be good. Does it restrict or enhance the workplace?
I think it can enhance the workplace. I think the only issue recently has become a bit of a buzzword, which means people are a bit tired of it. The novelty is kind of wearing off. But I think when it's done intelligently, I think it can be fantastically useful. Um, there are workplaces who put sustainability at the forefront. They're often a lot more efficient. They're a lot more sustainable, obviously, smarter energy use and reduce waste for me. And that usually improves comfort and experience, which, as head of workplace operations and experience is key to my role. So we have to make sure that people are having the best experience that they possibly can do. The mistake is often treating sustainability as a tick box, like something that is imposed upon people. We're fortunate here. We have a very passionate workforce, and especially in regards to sustainability. So, for example, when I first came in, we had bins dotted all over the office in every nook and cranny. And it took cleaners an age to get around to all of them. Often there were maybe just a crumpled up piece of paper or one banana skin or apple core, and you can't justify taking that out, but then you can't leave it because of the pest it could potentially attract. So you're wasting a lot of the resource in terms of bin liners, etc. So what we've done is we got rid of all of the ones on the sort of like radius of the office, and we have 3 central points, one on the fourth floor and two on the fifth floor where people can go. One, it gets their steps up, and two, it reduces the amount of wasted time our cleaners have, and obviously using the resources to the maximum of their ability. In addition to that, we made sure it was really clear what went in where. So we spent a good amount of money on signage to make sure people were aware of exactly what materials can go in or need to go into what waste stream. And one of our future plans is, again, to let people know what that journey is. What happens once it leaves the office? A lot of people have the assumption that once it leaves here, it just goes in the big bin anyway. It's all crumpled together and then it's off to waste. But that's not the case. So we want to show people how seriously we're taking sustainability in regards to zero to zero to landfill, zero waste to landfill. Sorry. So we're working really hard to achieve that. So yeah, that's another thing that we are considering at this point.
Rod, that's brilliant. Thank you. Um,
Pleasure.
so, hi, how are you doing?
Doing well. Thank you very much. And thanks for
Good, good.
inviting me for the podcast.
Fantastic. So, kicking off with the first of the five questions, are the buildings we look after, are they a managed asset or a social environment?
Yeah, for us, it's definitely a social environment. The workplace is where we enable social cohesion and really want to make sure there are real connections between colleagues. And within Booking.com, we see that connection also drives innovation, but also frees up barrier in decision making and make things more agile. So this is definitely considered a social environment and very important for us as an organization.
Fantastic, fantastic. And how can we, and what have you done around creating more inclusive environments?
Yeah, I think that starts with understanding the needs of the different groups that are working in your organization. But mainly two things. First, talk to those users directly, understand their challenges, understand their needs, and see how you can accommodate to those. But also, secondly, use external audits to assess your space or your workspace. That combination gives you the best of both worlds. Some insight from your own users, but also definitely see what's external benchmarking to guide you into design the best solution.
Okay, that's good. And this is a one that I think everyone would have a different answer to, but who is it in the organization who owns productivity?
Yeah, I believe this is definitely a shared responsibility. It should never be siloed into one department because you depend on each other. You have dependencies running between HR, workspace services, IT. But I do think that having a task force that overlooks it, but it should come from the various departments. So definitely not owned by one.
Fantastic. So interestingly, this next question cropped up today because Meta are putting sensors in to track their employees' activities. So sensors in the workplace, do we see them as being supportive or is it just surveillance?
It's definitely supportive. I think sensors are critical to understanding how the workplace is actually being used. But it's definitely not only hardware, it's data across systems that makes it very valuable. Think about HR data, booking data of your rooms, batch check-ins. That lets you analyze what's working, but also what's not, so you can focus on real issues instead of taking a generic approach that only half fits. The data-driven workspace is one of the biggest priorities within Booking.com. It's how we keep evolving something that by nature is very static. By applying a data-driven approach, you're able to move static assets like real estate and the workspace environment.
Actually, thinking about it, I would guess that Booking.com would be pretty good at, by the nature of the business, are pretty good at sorting out their workplace monitoring and
Yeah.
using the data.
Yeah.
So the fifth question is about sustainability. Do you see that as something that restricts or enhances the workplace for the end users?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it definitely is an enhancement, but we should be aware of those legal requirements, which can sometimes feel restriction. But I think in general, today's workforce demands that organizations apply sustainable practices in the office. It's what people expect, it's what people do in their daily lives, and they really they expect it also in their professional lives. So definitely an enhancement.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for that, Stan. And very useful, some very useful comments.